Hola. Welcome to the Trap Chatterbox podcast with me and only me, because I have no guests this evening or this afternoon or this morning, whenever you listen to this, if you are listening to this, and I really appreciate that, thank you. Because I knew at the very start of this, being that I am absolutely brand new, the one thing that would be very hard to do is get a consistency of guests. Lo and behold, that's turned out to be the case. Now, I have a couple lined up at the minute, but it's very different to sort of organise times. It's very difficult to organise availability. So that's on pause. But one of the other things that is also a bit of an issue for me right now is the editing. Like I said, I'm not a maestro at it just yet. So, you know, if you've listened to the first two episodes, you'll notice that yourself. I've been told by a couple of people, Dan, really good work. Really good work. First 2.5 minutes of that were really good. And then I turned off. And I'm like, oh, what was it? The sound. Right. So I've let these people know that actually, look, let me fix the sound first as well, because I don't want to do an episode where obviously the sound is incredibly difficult to listen to, and therefore you've lost a story of somebody who could have been very, very interesting. Especially now that I have one lined up of a former sportsman who is also a former world record holder in cycling. And after he set this world record in cycling, he went on to accomplish an awful lot in cycling. And then in other stages of his life, was a very high achiever as well. And he's 90 years old. So for this one, I sort of thought, you know what, I don't want the sound to be absolutely crap on that. So we're gonna wait on just a small bit until I can get the sound sorted. So, you know, keep an ear out for that one. But tonight it is just me. This afternoon. And after 3 weeks, I haven't posted for 3 weeks. And I thought to myself for the last week and a half, like, I need to find something to put up, because that's what happens when you start something like this. You want to start building consistency. But the one thing that I didn't want to do was actually to speak myself. Odd enough as that is, I was like, I don't want them to hear me. It's like, oh, what the fuck did you start a podcast for? You know, I was hoping that I'd never have to do one of these by myself. But then again, it's, as I said, I knew I'd have to eventually. But I was on my way home from work today, and I was sick of listening to music. I'm after downloading Spotify, and I can't stop listening to music. But today I sort of thought to myself, do you know what? I'm not in the mood for it. So I popped on a podcast. It was Tommy Tiernan's podcast. And Tommy Tiernan, for me at the minute, is the best talk show host in the world. I mean, there's nobody better than Tommy Tiernan right now. He sits down in his chair, somebody who he isn't expecting, doesn't know who the guest is, there's no script, they come out, and sometimes he knows you and sometimes he doesn't, yet he's always able and willing to get right to the heart of who this person is and what they're about. That's the one thing I never realised about him, was the level of empathy in the man is ridiculous. I went to see him a few years ago in I can't remember where I'd seen him. I seen him a few years ago, about 10 years ago. And as I was watching him, I thought, would you stop fucking shouting? Jesus Christ, would you just talk? And then you watch him doing his talk show, and he can get very quiet and very sincere. And I just thought to myself, now that is a talk show. That's a host. And I think he is only rivaled by Graham Norton. Because even though Graham Norton's show is still a chat show and there's still advertisements to be done for whatever show or book, he still finds time to get to that personal side of the guest. Unlike American talk shows that I've seen where the guest comes out and you're told basically, look, you've got 7 minutes here. We're going to plug your book, your song, your film, give a quick little anecdote. The audience will love you and then you're off stage. They actually spend time. So I thought I'd listen to his today. And one of them the episode that I was listening to, he was speaking about language. And I really, really enjoyed the episode, actually. He spoke about language, but how it's limited. Language is limited. And that actually the real powerhouse of expression is not language, it's silence. I thought that was really interesting. Now, you'll kind of know that in yourself. You've had moments, either throughout your life or throughout your day or throughout your week where you'll recognize the power of a silent moment. If someone, say your mother or father, is disappointed with you, you'd sooner they shouted at you, wouldn't you? It's when they get quiet. You're like, oh, Jesus. So often it's not saying anything at all is the best thing. And that actually you can build a lot of empathy with people. By not speaking. And he spoke about a time when he was in a silent retreat and you weren't able to speak for 9 days. No eye contact even for that 9 days. And he says that by the end of that 9 days, the first thing that everyone did was hug each other. Such was the level of empathy built between them. They just hugged each other. And I loved that idea. So I sat and I thought about this and I thought, you know what? Maybe that's something that I could speak about for myself. Is my own sort of relationship to language. Now come here to me. I am not an intellectual. You can turn off right here if you feel the need. I do have my own thoughts and opinions on it because I love to write and because I do write, and sometimes I don't love to write actually, but I've been doing it since I'm a child, so I thought I'd have my own little say on it. So I've been writing since I'm a kid, but I write to express myself, and I have done in sort of every way you can, which is, whether that be screenplays or poetry or rhymes or songs, whatever it might be. I try to express myself in all of these different ways, probably trying to find the right one to do it. But I probably realise actually that words are incredibly hard to express yourself with. Language is incredibly hard to express yourself with because it is limited. And it can be very maddening actually to try and sit down and write something when you feel intense about a particular emotion or a particular thought, and you want to sit down and you want to write the hell out of this thought. And you can't do it because you have that certain, when you get that emotion, like there's that, you can feel what it is, but you don't know what the word is. You don't know what the sentence is to describe it. It can be real maddening. It can be a pain in the ass, and it can be very frustrating to do so. So I probably choose to express myself through the most pain in the arse way possible, which is through language, through words. Now I'm good enough to write something, and I'll probably be good enough to express something, but it's never right on the money. And there's probably a lot of other ways which are better. My grasp of the English language, as I said, isn't probably good enough. You get painters out there, put the right blend of colours together, and that right there is a complete expression on a page. I don't know, a squirrel sitting under a tree and a nut falling on it. I don't know. That could be like a whole life in a painting for one guy, and you're like, I don't see it, but he does, and that's true expression for him. You know, maybe expression for you is I don't know, walking naked through a park. You know, to hell with everybody else is how I express myself. However inappropriate that might be, that could be it for you, and you could probably be entirely fulfilled by that. But language, I find, is really a difficult way to do it. And it gets to a point then where, because I'd say I've written this sentence a million times in one way or another, it gets to a point where you go, I'm not even expressing myself anymore with what I'm writing. Because now I'm so fucked off by the fact that I can't find another assembly of words to write what I'm feeling or thinking, that I become pent up and I'm going the opposite way to expressing myself. I'm actually just clamming up. And that right there is, it's crazy when it happens, and you just got to walk away for a little while. But, words are crazy, because I always find it very amusing, people who get highly offended by words. When the right assembly of words bothers everyone. That person knows how to push my buttons because they know exactly what to say and how to say it. But I always find it amazing how bothered people can get by it. And it seems nowadays you don't even need context to what you're saying, to these words. You don't need context. You just need to say these words, and all of a sudden that's enough. And the one word that I always feel like, that's mad, you can't say that ever, like it's completely untouchable, is the N word. Nagger. Is you can't ever say that, and it does not matter what the circumstances are. You just can't say it. You could be standing in the middle of a field, screaming out to the wild blue yonder, just the N word, not to anybody, not for any particular reason except to do it, and some passerby would be like, oh, you can't say that. It's like, but why? I haven't actually said this to anybody. There's no context to this, but you're bothered by it. And you look at all the outrage and stuff that goes on around language at this stage, and it becomes a battleground. Even I was at work today, and I said the word retard. Not pointing at anybody and using it, but I used it in a sentence. I can't remember what the situation was. In fact, I do. I was speaking about myself. I said I was a tech retard. That I'm not good enough at using it. And the person I was working with went, well, you can't say that. I went, I can say that. Yes, I can say that. And there's too much of this fucking, you can't say that now about everything. You can't say that. But I can say it. In a certain context, I wouldn't say it. But I can say it. And I find that really interesting, that nobody cares about the context in which words are used anymore. I know this has gone well on from what I was originally starting down the path of, but the context of what you say now doesn't matter anymore. It's just the fact that you have said it. So it's all very surface looking. On the surface, you have said this word. So whatever the context behind it doesn't matter. It's just the fact that you've said it. So, is language now incredibly powerful, or is it incredibly weak? Don't be getting highfalutin notions of yourself, Dan. But I did wonder that earlier on today. Is it incredibly powerful, or is it incredibly weak? Because you can pick at every word, but you're not picking at every word because you have a sincere, strong belief that a person can't say this. It's just outrage. Oh, and I'm disgusted that you would choose to say such a thing. And it's like, yeah, but, are you really? Or is it just that you think you should be? Now, that makes sense to me, even if it doesn't make sense to you. And if you're still here, cheers. But, words are they're a battleground at this stage. You're almost better off saying nothing. And the thing is, words now are, words are used to express. And if you can't use words to express what you're feeling, then what's the point? I mean, we can't go around now hugging people and kissing people. We can't do that, just in case. And I'm absolutely outraged by that, because I am a huge hugger, massive hug advocate. Anytime in previous jobs, I'd go into work, assuming I'm getting on well with, say, the female staff members, and I do mean just getting on well. You'd hug them good morning, or hug them good afternoon. How are you? All right. How's things? Grand. And then you get on with your day. You can't do that now, which I think is a fucking outrage. But words then are your main source of expression. And everyone is always bloody outraged when you come out with a real, genuine, forceful opinion using strong language. You can't say that, but I can say that. And I think that there needs, provided you're not out there hurting people with your language. I mean, this idea of just someone says a word and you're going to jump down their throat for saying it, I think is absolute nonsense. And getting offended on other people's behalfs, this is going way down a different road now, but getting offended on, do you know what? Bill Burr does this. So if it's good enough for Bill Burr, and Bill Burr is just, he's a goddamn hero anyway, but getting offended on other people's behalfs, I think is crazy. I had a conversation with a comedian before, Steve Cummins is his name, lovely guy. And he told me once, we were actually speaking about this outrage idea about 10 years ago. And he told me a story one night. He was hosting a comedy show. He was the MC. And he says in the middle of doing his opening bit, before introducing the next comedian on, he said a guy in a wheelchair, motorized wheelchair, with a cowboy hat on, was just rolling by there in the middle of the crowd. And he said just instinctively, off the top of his head, he went, huh, Brokeback Mountain. And he said the guy in the wheelchair laughed so hard he crashed into a pillar. And it was everyone else in the audience who was like, oh, Jesus Christ, you can't say that. And I think that's brilliant, right? And I love using that example because it is just ludicrous. It's bloody crazy that language is watched so much now that it's not watched to appreciate or to even understand what's being said. It's being watched and listened to for where you fucked up. So if that's the way it's going to be and you can't express yourself nowadays through shaking hands with somebody or hugging them just in case, especially now it seems everyone is keeping their distance, language is the only way or the dominant way of expressing yourself. If people are going to jump down your throats when you choose to express yourself, why speak? You know? Why speak? Anyway, what do you think is the best first date? The best first date. And I can tell you what it's not. It is not a dinner. Sitting down, two people having a dinner. It's the most bloody intense way of saying hello to each other. You know, we're going to sit down here now, and this is going to be the point in time at which I need to know your whole life. Right? I need to know everything about you. And I'm going to make up my mind about you based on that. And it's, again, based on language. And of course you can have a good time. I mean, I'm not saying you can't, because you're actually talking to each other. You know, and that is exactly what, well, it probably does come across like that. I don't mean it like that. But for all of you sitting at home going, Jesus, this lad, he hasn't fucking stopped rabbiting on for the last 25 minutes. And yes, here he is preaching about silence. But it's a very intense way of getting to know somebody. You know, and then by the end of it, you're going, well, there won't be a second date. My God, no. But you never truly got to see that person in their own environment, you know, or in a more relaxed environment. For me, it's a gig. It's a gig. I think it's a gig. Because you go out there and you're at whatever sort of bar or whatever sort of situation you find yourself listening to music, a busker on the street. You know, it's cheaper, we'll just stand here and watch this guy for a few minutes. There isn't that need to speak the whole time. You can just be there. We're going to hopefully enjoy music, both of us. Otherwise it goes down like a lead balloon. But we're going to enjoy the music. And if you're having a couple of drinks, you're having a couple of drinks. But you're enjoying that energy. The energy that's being built up between you and in that environment. And then once you feel more relaxed with each other, that you've seen what this person is actually like in this environment, and you go, yeah, do you know what? I like that. Great. Now we can go off and have our conversation. Now you can tell me about yourself once we feel a little bit more comfortable. For me, it's a gig. I asked a couple of people this recently, and nobody ever mentions a gig. I find that nuts. But if I had to choose the best night out for me wouldn't be anything crazy. It'd be the corner of a pub, an old man's bar, me and one mate, a light hanging down over the table, and a couple of pints. And you chat about whatever the hell it is that comes up. Something or nothing. Talk absolute shite. Perfect. That sounds great to me. Again, I do believe that relates to the language idea. But it's very, just a couple of different situations there. It can't be dinner for your first date. Jesus, no. But to show sort of the power of not needing to talk to each other. I think hiking. You don't need to be waffling to each other the whole time. Just being out there in the air, in the environment, and doing something together is really powerful as well. You can find out a lot about each other. You can express a lot in hiking and being out in the environments and showing what you're like as people. Now, you're going to get people that go, God, no, hiking, Jesus, no. I'm not a very outdoorsy person. Those are the ones that when you get them outdoors, once they start up a mountain and they've got over that first literal hump, or they haven't snapped their ankle half an hour in, the little victories, they start to love it. And I find that's the best bonding way for me. I love a hike. And I'll take every friend that I have and go on a hike with them. Over a night out, for example. I'd take a hike because I find that's the best way of building a relationship between you. Let's do the physical stuff. Let's get out and walk, hike, sweat a little bit. I'm aware that this doesn't sound like an actual hike now, but and then once you get to the top of the mountain, you can just sit there quietly. And you can just sort of take in the view. You can take in what you've done as friends, that situation. And you don't need to talk to each other, And again, there's a lot built by not speaking to each other. And I done one maybe 2 years ago now with a friend of mine who I'd never done it with before. And we went up the Mourne Mountains a little bit late in the day, a little bit too late for me. I'd be one of those people that like to get out early in the morning. Let's get up and do it in the morning. Nobody ever seems to want to do that. So we arrived here a little too late in the day. We get up the mountain, we get to the top. It's It's great achievement, but then we're coming back down in the dark. And what an exercise that was. Completely unintentional. But, you know, you always think you want to get up and back before dark hits. For safety's sake and whatever. But once the dark hit, it became a real team bonding exercise. You're walking by the rivers as they're coming down the mountain. And your one person has the light off their phone in front of them, and then once you've hit a dangerous point, you'll shine the light back behind you. You'll be like, watch your step right there. Yeah, they'll flash their light behind them for the person behind them, and it becomes a real team bonding exercise. And it's a great way of bringing people together, I find, you know. And I suppose I should bring this nonsensical episode to a close. You've been bloody marvellous, and if you've listened up to this point, I really appreciate it. And the next time we'll get someone on, and you know, that will be much better than this, I imagine. But I appreciate you listening, and I will see you again on the next episode.